The RV Show USA is brought to you by Flagstaff, Rockwood, building better RVs, making smarter RVers.
Diana, let's go ahead and start with you. You're a person who has been dealing with used RVs for like, I don't know, 40 years, more than 40 years, and you bought a number of them yourself. Generally speaking, what do you look for when you're buying a used RV? What does RV Nana look for?
I've been with PPL Motorhomes for 41 years, and I started years ago as a receptionist. And at that time, I wasn't really even thinking about an RV. I was trying to feed my daughter. That was all there was to it. And as we got into looking at RVs, I looked for something that would be comfortable, something that I would really want to enjoy. And I didn't want to take all this stuff with me that I have in my house. And it was fun. But then when you start looking, there's some things, whether you're looking for a fifth wheel, a motor home, a little trailer, whatever it is, there's some things you need to think about. And I always say one of the first things is to look for water damage. And water damage is more than just a roof. I know Al will talk about this too, but in Texas, we've had a lot of floods the last few years, as a lot of the country has. Crawl underneath that RV and look and see if there's rust under there. Also, see if there's grass or anything hanging from the axle. That can sometimes be a dead giveaway that it's been sitting in a field in water.
Are you seeing buyers today through the years? Are they more knowledgeable than in the past, or about the same, or is there so much information that they seem to be overwhelmed? What do you think?
I think it's a mix. I think you have people who have been shopping for a while for RVs, and they are much more knowledgeable thanks to, our guest tonight. I mean, this is awesome because they help them so much. You have others that just happen to see the neighbor down the street. They leave every Friday afternoon and with their big fifth wheel, and they go away and they come back and they're smiling. They leave there smiling, and they decide it's for them. And sometimes that isn't for them. The wife goes, if it doesn't have room service and everything, I may not want this.
Yeah, it's not for everybody. A lot of people love it. Most people, I think, love it. But Stacy and Phil, you guys are full-time RVers, and you became full-time RVers. Has it been 3 years?
Yeah,
it has.
Well, almost.
Next week is 3 years.
Wow. So were y'all RVers before you made the leap to full-time, or what's the story there?
No, absolutely not. I think I slept in my aunt's RV once when I was a little kid, but other than that, no RVing, not really much camping either when I was a kid.
No, we together, we never camped. We didn't have an RV. This is the first RV that I ever test drove, and we ended up with it.
Yeah.
When you were shopping for that RV, you bought, as I remember, it's a used RV, right? You bought a used motorhome?
Yes.
Yes.
Why did you buy used, and what was that buying process like for you? Because you guys were brand new at it and probably didn't know an awful lot. So, share that if you would.
Used for us was for the depreciation. That was the main thing. We didn't want to take the biggest punch of depreciation. We've always done that with our cars too. We've always bought at least a year old. So that's just what we do. So that's what we were looking for. And we also knew, we bought a diesel, so we weren't worried about mileage on the engine. They're workhorses, they go forever. So the main thing for us was getting a floor plan that we loved. We wanted a motorhome, and then of course making sure it's a reliable RV and not a lemon.
Yeah, and we knew that somebody else had already gone through the bumps and bruises along the way. The things the first year fixes. So we knew those had been taken care of and already knocked out. So we were comfortable with our 1-year-old RV.
How long did you shop for your dream RV? How long was that?
Well, I would say almost 2 years. It became almost a full-time job, and we were both working. I mean, that's how in-depth I got into researching every type of motorhome that I could put in front of me.
Okay, and what would you do differently today than you did, 3 years ago when you were buying it?
That's a good question.
I don't know that I would do. Okay, if we did anything different, it wouldn't necessarily be the buying process itself. It would be more education, maybe going to a tech school and getting more information that way as far as what the RV does. And I mean, we didn't even know the basics. Like, we walked in, it was in our driveway, and literally we couldn't get the vacuum to come on. Like, well, I say we didn't know anything, we knew nothing. So if we had known about some of the tech courses and that kind of thing, definitely getting that under our belt and more official training. I mean, YouTubers are great, obviously, I'm going to say that, but you know, some real training so we know what we're doing.
Diana, do you see a lot of people like Phil and Stacy that literally they don't know an awful lot, and they come in and they buy their RV and they just buy their first RV and they don't know, haven't done an awful lot of homework?
I see quite a few of them that do that, and fortunately they will pay for our pre-delivery inspection and our team will go through it. But I don't care how good a walkthrough is, you are going to find things when you're out there RVing the first time that you had no clue how it was going to work. And I know it's bad being the president of the largest RV consignment dealership. It's hard for me to say this, but you aren't going to many people don't like their first RV. Yeah. They find all the things in that first RV they wish was a little bit different for the next one, is what it amounts to.
So let's bring up our next guest. Al Pearce is a certified what is it, Al? An
NRVIA
inspector, and you actually did the inspection on Phil and Stacy's RV before they bought it. Tell us about that. I mean, you came to Texas and it was like this thing just kind of worked out, came together.
Yeah, actually, Phil found me on the locator with the NRVTA, and we hooked up. We get the calendars together. It was at a dealer just outside of town there in San Antonio, and we scheduled everything to go. And they were still working, so they didn't. I had never met them, never did till 2 years later almost. But yeah, and the only issue that dealer had was they told me I couldn't go on the roof. And I said, I have to go on the roof. That's one of the most important parts of an inspection, because that's where water, gravity, right? He said, if the owner sees you on the roof, she's going to kick you off the property. So I called Phil, I texted him, I can't remember now. And he's, well, yeah, do the best you can. So I had to do it from the side of the RV, which I wish I could have got on it just to make sure, but it all ended up working okay. There wasn't any issues and we were all good. But yeah, and then we were done that same day, and then I followed up with them and heard they bought it, and then we caught up with each other a couple years later.
So Phil, you had said that your big deal was you didn't want to buy a lemon. Is that the reason why you hired Al to come and take an inspection, to take a thorough look at it? Do we still have Phil? I know he's there. I see you. Maybe y'all click the mute button there.
Okay, wait a minute.
There you are.
We unmuted it and then it muted by itself. Not sure. But our premise for getting the inspection was we would have our house inspected before we bought it. This was going to be our house. It happens to be on wheels, and we knew that an inspection or an inspector would know more about the ins and outs of the RV and what to look for other than us. We were enamored by. Well, I was the 4 TVs on board, so I might not have caught the same things that Al did. So it was the best peace of mind going forward with the sale.
We didn't know anything. So, I mean, it's like walking into a house and just seeing the fixtures, and that's pretty much all it would have been for me. So we knew we had to get a professional in there to take care of it. So we knew what we were getting into. If it needed minor repair, something that we could tackle, we might have done that. But at least knowing what we're getting into, so we can decide and make a decision on the RV.
Right. Now I know that there are lots of different types of inspections. On the one end, you've got Uncle Joe that can come over and go, yeah, it looks good to me. On the other end, you've got the NRVIA type of inspector that looks at everything. Somewhere in the middle there, I think, Diana, is what you guys do at PPL. I mean, you literally sell thousands of RVs a year. You can't do a deep dive into every RV because a lot of times the seller doesn't want to have it done. The buyer doesn't want to have it done. Am I right when I say that? Or you still do an inspection?
The buyer is the one who pays for that inspection, and we do a pretty thorough, but not to the extent that Al does. We do not inspect the chassis and the drivetrain. We're looking at the house part of the RV more than anything else, and it makes a huge difference when the customer they come in and they're going, I don't need an inspection. We're going, yes, you do. You really do. Something as simple as a refrigerator that is not cooling properly can cost them a lot more. These first-time RVers think, oh, it's a little refrigerator. It's only one of those college-sized things. It's probably, $200.
Wrong.
That isn't the way it is.
Yeah. All right. So Phil, I know that you bought through a dealer. When you bought, was there when you told them that you wanted to have your RV inspected before you signed on the dotted line, what was their reaction? Did they do any pushback on you?
There was very little pushback. They did say, why do you need it? Our guys have inspected it. And I said, well, I appreciate that. However, I'd like an independent outside set of eyes to come in that's not working for the company. So, I stood my ground. I don't know that it would have been a deal breaker. We never got to that point. However, if they wouldn't let me bring in an inspector, then it would have planted seeds of doubt. With us saying, okay, you should stand behind whatever it is you're selling. So we felt pretty good.
One last question here, Al. When you go to a dealer, for example, a dealer where Phil and Stacy bought their motorhome, do you get a negative vibe? Do they push you away? Go try to get rid of you because they view you as a deal killer? Tell me about that.
Yeah, it has happened before. A couple years ago, I had 2 dealers in about a month's time frame wouldn't let me on the property. Well, like Phil indicated, what are they hiding? Why won't they let someone come in? I mean, the buyer's paying the inspection, like Diana said. So it's like, well, why won't you let them on there? I've had the same issue with private sellers. And of course, the buyers say the same thing. Well, if the RV is in such great condition that they proposed it was, then why wouldn't they let an inspector? It comes and goes, Alan. I mean, we'll go 6-8 months with no issues at a dealer. They open arms. Here's the water. Here's the bathroom. And next time I get there, a different one, then they're not very cooperative. They're kind of standish off. They don't want to assist if we need any help with anything. So and a lot of times I found too, though, it's the sales rep. The sales rep gets involved with the process. It seems to go smoother. When I have challenges at dealers, it's usually because the rep is just there to make a buck, and they're not getting an RV set up for us. We ask them to have it all set up and ready, full hookups, the whole thing, and we get there and nothing's been done. There's no fuel in the propane tank. There's hardly any fuel in the engine, so you can't run the generator. I mean, when the sales rep gets involved, and I always call them the day before, still doesn't make any difference. We get there the next morning and we're starting from zero. Yeah.
Oh, so folks, what do you think? You're watching this video. We've sort of gone in the direction of RV inspections for sure, but what do you look for when you're buying a used RV? When you're shopping for a used RV, what do you look for? Post your thoughts and comments down below. And if you would, please give this video a thumbs up and hit that bell over there on YouTube. Let us know what you think. Remember, you can connect with our guests on our website at thervshowusa.com. Again, thervshowusa.com.